My first Arcadia author today, who I'm going to speak with, is Joe Sonderman, a veteran St. Louis radio personality and traffic reporter who has been traveling and studying Route 66 for many years. He has a new book out called Route 66 in New Mexico, and this is sort of a classic example of what Arcadia does in taking a topic and really narrowing it down to a beautifully unique niche. Route 66 is a wonderful road, my favorite road in the country, and here's a chance now to experience it just in New Mexico. So without further ado, my chat with author Joe Sonderman. Again, my name is Chris Epting, and you are listening to the Pop Culture Road Trip here on webtalkradio.net. Joe, tell me a little bit about your relationship with Route 66. Route 66 is one of those roads that people have very deep emotional attachments to. Describe what yours is.
I think if you drive it, you will understand. That's what I always tell people. Route 66 ran, obviously, through St. Louis, past my house. And when we were growing up, there was that romance attached to it. It meant going somewhere. To me, it represents a time when getting there was half the fun, before we were in such a big hurry. And Route 66 and the other two-lane roads follow the land. They go through the towns. They don't blast through the landscape at 70 miles an hour. You meet the people, and you actually see something when you're on the old two lanes as opposed to the interstate. And my emotional attachment to it is the first time I drove it was a really stressful time in my life. And meeting these people and seeing these places made me realize that there's this whole great big world out there that doesn't move at 70 miles an hour.
Mm-hmm. Now, you know, on that note, and again, I think you just articulated what a lot of us feel about the Mother Road. Let's talk about your new book, Route 66 in New Mexico. You've taken a piece of the road here and isolated it in your new book just out from Arcadia Publishing. Talk about the spirit of the road through New Mexico and what people can experience through your new book.
I think that the reason New Mexico is so special is if you come from the east or the Midwest and you were on Route 66, New Mexico is when you knew you were in the West. You know, maybe it was that glimpse of that first Indian trading post or the motel shaped like a teepee or a pueblo. Also, the land changes in New Mexico. The landscape opens out into that western landscape with the buttes and the arroyos and that sort of thing. And then the sky in New Mexico is even different. It's a deeper blue. It's so wide and so vast. And New Mexico, in addition to that, it's the cultures. New Mexico is this unique combination of the Spanish culture, the Native American culture, and American culture, and it all came together in this glorious mishmash of architecture and roadside hucksterism. You know, the snake pits and all that. All that stuff is gone. You know, the good people came in and they saved us from all that.
Talking with Joe Sonderman about his new book, Route 66 in New Mexico, just out from Arcadia Publishing. Joe, what do you include in the book that people may not have seen before? I know you've amassed your own sort of great collection of images from Route 66. What's included in the new title that would be new to people?
I think a lot of it would be images of places that are long gone. And I really tried hard to research the history of these places, who owned them when, and I tried to tell you what is there now so you can kind of compare the sites. But I think what a lot of people haven't, these businesses, each one of these roadside businesses was a family trying to make a living, and they all have a story. And it's always compelling. These people... it's always a compelling story how this family eked out this existence along the road, and in many cases where their livelihood was wiped out by the interstate. And I love to get into those stories. The famous landmarks are there, you know, the Blue Swallow and Tucumcari and all that, but I really tried to find the old trading post, and again, I'm fascinated by the snake pits, you know, because when we were kids, my old man wouldn't stop at that for nothing. and I always made myself a promise that someday I was going to go back and I was going to stop at every one of those places.
And do a book about it, too.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I've done.
Do you, you know, what time span does the book cover on Route 66?
Well, it covers the glory years of 66, which would be 1926 until the arrival of the interstate. But there's obviously a large part. See, Route 66 is not gone. In New Mexico, 85-90% of it is there, and it's drivable. So it does go right up to the present day, because these attractions, many of them are still vital. They're still attracting people. You know, Albuquerque in particular still has a very active Route 66 community. So really, 26 to the present day.
Obviously, this is the kind of book you can, no matter where you live, if you like roads and road culture, you'll enjoy the book. But if someone were to take this book with them along Route 66 in New Mexico, would that be a nice way to enjoy it as well? Is there enough left there where they could line things up and sort of experience it?
Absolutely, and when the place is still there, or I try to include that. There are many guidebooks to 66 that you take with you, but this one will tell you the history of the place where you're standing. It can just be, some people will pass by and they'll say, "Oh, it's an abandoned building. Who cares?" But each one of those places has a history.
Is there something special you learned? I mean, again, you're an aficionado on the road. Doing a book sometime like this, it forces you into a different kind of detective work. Was there some big reveal or something you learned that really caught you off guard at doing this book?
Oh, I think there are many, and mostly it's the human interest stories. The fellow who invented the Navajo Code during World War II, the Navajo Code talkers. He owned a motel on Route 66. The story of Lillian Redmond, who came west in a covered wagon and ran the Blue Swallow Motel in Tucumcari. The stories of the generations that owned this place in Gallup. The El Rancho Hotel in Gallup has a fantastic history. I just kept, the more I dug, the more I became intrigued. And it just kind of snowballs. And Route 66, it's always evolving. It's always changing. The thing about it to me was, you never know what's around the next turn. When you drive the interstate, you've got the same predictable chains clustered at the off-ramp. Not that there's anything wrong with that. But when you drive 66, you don't know. The cafe you stop in may be the best hamburger you've ever had. It might be the worst. But we've lost that sense of adventure, unpredictability, where it isn't all sanitized for your protection, and the political correctness and all that. And I guess that makes me a grumpy old man.
The author is Joe Sonderman. His new book is Route 66 in New Mexico. Joe, it's available, the usual suspects, Amazon and everything?
Yeah, and it should be at all the reputable bookstores and probably some disreputable ones as well.
Joe, I want to thank you very much. Good luck with the book. Again, it looks like a very unique look at arguably our country's best road, I think, and most significant road.
And thank you. It is a privilege to talk to you. You've done some great books, too.
Oh, thanks, Joe.
Thank you for the compliment, Joe Sonderman, and thank you as well for joining me to talk about your new book, Route 66 in New Mexico, just out from Arcadia Publishing. The Arcadia Publishing Spotlight is heard each week here on the Pop Culture Road Trip, and right now, as a special for listeners, Arcadia is offering you a 15% discount off of any of their titles. Simply go to arcadiapublishing.com, make your purchase, and then enter the code word RADIO at checkout. Find your place in history with more than 6,000 titles, and also find a 15% discount at arcadiapublishing.com.